a pretty exciting week for me. One of the things I'd like to do is listen most often to sports stations on the radio. So if you've been anywhere near the sports stations or looking at the TV or reading the sports section of the paper, you know that it's spring training time. You don't have to be an exciting baseball fan to begin to realize that's coming. It's all over the place. And teams are gathering in Arizona and Florida, and they're getting ready, and a part of that. I noticed as I was listening to that, no matter what I was reading or what I was listening to, not only was there excitement among the people that were being interviewed or being talking, but I found myself getting a little excited. Especially when I'm putting on a dozen layers of clothing to stay warm and looking outside at cold temperatures and thinking spring is coming. The original word for Lent, and we are on the beginning of Lent today, the original meaning of Lent was the word for spring. It's curious, in the midst of winter we started talking about spring on the church calendar, but it's that time. It's a time for spring cleaning, and I think that's a wonderful part of what Lent is really all about. And the Lenten traditional disciplines of prayer, of almsgiving, of that time for reflection, the time for repenting and setting a course. I think spring training cleans it up well. And it's a time when often, many of you, somebody mentioned already, they started their spring cleaning to go through the house and those things, begin to decide what stays, what goes. It's part of the excitement and part of the preparation for warm weather. For children, I remember as I was doing the children's sermon, I realized they took a look outside at the snow and they could not even conceive of warm weather. For us adults, we know it's coming. We have been through this and we've seen it. And we're looking forward to that springtime. Truth be known, out of Russia. And bring it even faster. But I thought about that Lenten journey, what's coming in our Lenten lessons. And again on that Wednesday night series. So I was looking it over, I got excited about that, and then I realized, well, there's two mistakes we could make. One, a part of me, when I'm reading a good book, I always want to jump to the end and read that last page to see how it ends. But isn't that the way it takes the fun out of it if you do that? I think similar to Lent, I'm curious to see how we end as we go through this journey. And I think that's a part of where the lessons are taking us. I think that's part of where Lenten journey is to be. That you and I stand here at the beginning of Lent, and we journey through Lent, knowing, and I hope for you, that we ended in the celebration of Easter different than what we started it. That we've done a little spring cleaning. I told the story first service, and I didn't remember who it was, but the person fessed up on the condition I not use their name. Wasn't quite sure of the occasion. Turned out it was after a funeral. And often after funerals, we gather downstairs for a luncheon, and that's what had happened this day. And as things were cleaning up, I began to second guess myself. I don't remember exactly what it was. But I said, I wish I would have done that differently. Wish I would have said something different. Wished I would have picked something different. I think in the liturgy, I don't remember what it was. And I was standing outside the kitchen area there, and from inside the kitchen, I heard this older lady say, well, it's SOB. That got my attention. And I pivoted around, and apparently the look in my face made her laugh. I felt a little better because not everybody was laughing in the kitchen. But she smiled and she said, oh, that's one of my favorite sayings. Should have been. Wasn't what I was thinking. But it was accurate. I thought about a poem. Whittier poem a friend sent me a while back. It's a sad poem, not one of his famous, and everything is pretty much unknown except for the last verse. It's a story about a young peasant woman working in the field one day. And as she's working in the field, a handsome judge comes riding by on his horse and stops for a drink of cold water. And in that, there's sort of a special moment. And there's sort of a connection. And as the poem goes, she dreams of going with him to live in that life of wealth and luxury and not hard work, with a kind and gentle man to be a part of that and what life might be. The next stanza of the poem, the judge thinks of what a dreary life he has and how he would love to go live with a fair maiden in a small cottage in the field in the country and live the simple life. And as the poem goes, Maud marries and is unhappy in her marriage and is a hard life. And the judge marries into a loveless marriage and goes through all the functions and parts of life, but is never happy. And Whittier ends the poem by saying, they both sort of longed for what might have been. That's a temptation, I think. We all long for what might have been. We second guess our decisions. And we get stuck back there. Part of spring cleaning, I think, in our soul and our minds is to let that stuff go. To not be burdened by it, that we might be freed up to live in today and go through this journey. That, I think, is what confession and forgiveness and repentance is all about as we begin our Lenten journey. It's about what needs to be swept out of the way and thrown into the garbage and let go of, so that we might be free to live. In the coming weeks of Lent, some will go into the gardens and clean out the gardens and prepare the soil for new life and new abundance. We stand here at the beginning of Easter, a little bit like spring training for the athletes. It's time to get ourselves in shape and prepare. And the passage from 1 Peter, I think, addresses that. I want to share that in a moment because I think it's focused on what we know, especially as adults in our mature faith. We know about Easter, but we need to take this journey through Lent. I think about the next 40 days. Part of me wants to rush it and fly through it. But another part of me recognizes that to do a thorough cleaning, it takes time and it takes effort. And if I want to celebrate Easter and truly welcome Christ into my life again this day with all the new life that he brings and all the new direction, then I need to clean out some of that stuff. For me, it starts with what might have been or should have been, to get that out of the way. And then journey through the coming days. And I think we'll do that. 1 Peter's a short letter. I'm not going to quote it again during Lent, but you may well want to go back and read that. But I especially like today's text. And I want to share that with you now. For Christ also suffered for sins once and for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, in order to bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he also went and made a proclamation to the spirits in prison, who in former times did not obey, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah during the building of the ark, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were saved through water, and baptism, which is prefigured, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, and powers made subject to him. We gather around the bread and wine of communion as God comes to us. As he comes to us this day, may he come and give us that spirit and that power to begin cleaning our spring cleaning and to clean out that which gets in the way of us and God and where God is leading us on this journey.